Okay, so this is what I'm going to show you, and I'll try to do it within about 10 minutes. And what we have here is a scene in Unity. It's like a mountain range. It's got a little bit of fog in it. It's got some trees that are moving in the wind. It's got some water, some terrain, two terrain textures, and I think that's about it, and a direct light. So that's what I'm going to try to do in about 10 minutes. So to start from the scratch, we would go to let me just save these. And usually when I save a scene, I just call it scene 1, for lack of a better name. And we'll go to File, New Project, so I can show you exactly how to make a project. So I'm going to browse around here. I'll make a new folder. And we'll click on that and select that folder. So all that was a folder. Now you can see that that's populated this area. So I know exactly where my terrain is going to be, or where my project's going to be. Now I want the character controller. I want a terrain asset package. I want a skybox package, and I want water. And that's all I need. And I've got some extra stuff loaded here. You know, that's going to vary based on what you've installed. So those are the three. Oh, I think I want Tree Creator also. Although I may not use that. I don't think I'm going to use that this time. Just in case. So Create. Notice that I'm set to 3D, and I'll click on Create. Here we are in a blank session of Unity. I've got nothing on the screen except the main camera. I'm going to go to Game Object, Create Other, Terrain, and if I just hit F, if I click on terrain and hit F, I should be able to see that a little bit better. How big is that terrain? Let's find out. Go over here to the right, under the inspector, since it is selected, settings, it's 2000 by 2000 by 600 high. Okay, so that's the size of this thing, which is fine for what we're doing right now. So what do I want to do? First I want to make my mountain range. Raise lower terrain, we'll click that button, and I've got a soft brush, and I'm just going to do like this, and the terrain's going to go like that, and the mountain range is going to go like that, but I want that to be a little bit bigger. And so there's my mountain range. And actually, let's go a little bit bigger, and let's bump up opacity a little bit too, so it's a little stronger brush. And I just want to naturally kind of create my volcano somewhere in here. And if I right click and drag, I can spin this around and kind of get a good view of it. And that's where I want my volcano. But actually I want it to have a flat top. So I'm going to go here to my next button, which is for paint height. I'm going to leave that at 100, which is a good value for what we're doing here. And just make that flat top look like that kind of, right? So that's the top of the volcano. And then let's go back to our first button. And if we hold down Shift, we can paint down. Right? So now we're dropping the elevation on the inside of the volcano. And now I want this next button that kind of looks like a spider to create some nice ridges. That makes this really look like a mountain range. And not to get too carried away here. So that's the basics of it, and maybe, you know, just a little bit of beach height here too, because we're going to be adding water, and I better bump my opacity down so I don't move this too much, and make the brush size a little bit bigger, because I want a beach here. And I probably should have done that first, because now I'm going to have to do some other stuff to make that work. Anyway, this is going to be the beach. And maybe we need that on the other side too. Okay, so that'll work. And we need some texture. Now this is for smoothing. The third button's just smoothing. Let's say we want to smooth that area out a little bit. And the fourth one is for our painting textures. So let's click on that. Let's go down to Edit Textures. Let's click on Add Texture. Let's click on Texture here, not on Normal Map, but on Texture Map, and click on Select. Let's scroll down until we get to Good Dirt and double click it and hit Add. Now we get good dirt all over the place. but I want some kind of cliff rocky type texture on the mountain range, so I'll click on Edit Textures, Add Texture, click on the Select button, find my cliff, and double click it, and Add. And now I'll just paint that, but I better select it first. And now I'm painting my cliff texture on there. But notice that it's very tiled. You can see the tiling at this scale, so we may need to change that. Let me just show you how to do that in case you do need to change it. Click on Edit Textures, Edit Texture. See the size of the tiling is 15 now. Let's say to make it real noticeable, let's say 45 and 45. That's going to be 3 times less dense. See it changing on the screen when I do that? Let's go even bigger. Let's go 100. See how that's changing? Okay, but I think that's a little too big. I'm going to go back down. We'll say 50 and 50 and apply. Okay, so that's done, but I'll tell you something else. The opacity should probably be down a little bit so that when we paint this, we can kind of merge it in with the sand, right? So I'm going to set these down a little bit so that it's, well, more of a blending here. Low opacity. And then you got to get close and kind of finesse this, but that's the gist of it. And for a character, go to Standard Assets, Character, Character Controllers. There's my first person character controllers. Drag him out onto the beach and hit F to zoom in on him. If your mouse is hovered over the scene view, hit F. There he is, halfway buried in the sand. Use your move button here. Drag up on the green arrow to pull him up out of the ground. So he's all the way up out of the ground, not halfway buried. Hit play, and now you're seeing with the character's eyes in the scene, but it's awfully dark. So let's stop the game by hitting the arrow, hitting the play button, and go to Game Object, Create Other, Directional Light. And let's pull that light up out of the ground a little bit. There's our sun. And we'll hit play again. Okay, so this is what we've got to work with. Here's our beach we're on right now. There's the mountain range. And as we get closer, you can see that texture looks pretty good from a player's perspective. Whereas when we were looking at it from way up on high, it does look very tiled. So pretty good texture, I'd say. Water. Let's get some water done. Standard Assets, Water, and we'll take some nighttime water. So I'm going to drag some nighttime water out onto the scene, and that should go in, whatever height you want the water to be, of course, and I'd say something like that. And I'll come over here to scale and make this, let's say 5,000 by 5,000 by 5,000, and maybe lower that a little bit. That's a little intense. And if you don't want so many islands, you can bring it down, or you can go back to your terrain. So I'll just click on terrain and paint some heights up a little bit like this. Right? So that's easy to do. Get rid of some of those islands. Some of those lakes or whatever you want to call it. Maybe leave that one in. Something like that. Okay, so now we need trees. Let's put some trees in. So I'll go to the 5th button, which is trees. We'll click on Edit Trees, Add Tree, and you can see there's no trees. So I'll click on the little button over here, which is our Select Game Object button, and we'll pick on palm trees, and I'll double click that. And the bin factor on those I'm going to set to 3. It can be from 0 to 5. 3 would be about in the middle. I'll say 2 actually. And we'll say Add. And now I want some palm trees like right there. Now notice that a lot of them came in as soon as I clicked, and that's dangerous. Compute wise, these things are real pigs. So let me just Control Z out of that. And let's say tree density instead of 83 is down to about 25. And I'll make a little bit smaller brush size also, because I don't want to get too carried away with these trees. And I'm just going to go right across here like this, and I've got a couple kind of on the edge of the beach there. Alright, so that's about it for trees. And all of those trees, we have some settings on color variation and height and width and so on. So I'm just going to leave those at default. And I'm going to go to settings, and in settings we can see that the speed of the wind and the size and the bending is all kind of in the middle. So let's go ahead and play the game and see if we can see those trees bending in the wind. And I don't see them bending on the wind. You can see I can run around now and I can see my scene, but the trees are not moving in the wind. So here's what I need to do. Game object, create other, wind zone. And the wind zone usually comes in at the corner of your map, of your terrain, so I'm going to move it over so I can see it and deal with it better. Over here to the beach where I live, and pull it up so we can see it. There it is. You can see the direction that that thing's pointing. That's going to be the direction the trees are moving. I'm just going to make it so that they're moving kind of this direction. And as we change our view, you can see those trees doing that. And I can okay, so the trees are moving in the wind on a level 2 of a possible 5. And they don't all move in the wind. Notice you got to be close enough to them for them to do that, because there's a setting there. You don't want to be, making everything in the game move and react, even if it's on the other side of the map, because you're wasting compute power when you do that. So we want to save our resources. So here are some of the settings that can affect that. If we go to terrain settings, we might be able to see some of this just by looking at it in the scene without having to go to the game. For example, billboard start. That is, are you going to be looking at an actual 3D tree, or are you going to be looking at something that looks like a tree, that's like a billboard, and it's just to fake out the eye? And if you're getting closer to stuff, you definitely want the real 3D tree, but if it's in the distance, a billboard's good enough. So what I'm going to do is say, up to about 200 yards, 150 yards, I want the real tree. And beyond that, I want the billboard. And then the tree distance. I want the trees to be able to, I want to see the trees up to, let's say, 1,000 meters away. So if there's any trees on the far side of this 2,000 by 2,000 terrain, I won't see them. I'll just see the ones that are within about 1,000 or even 500 meters. Okay, so let's go ahead and play that. Okay, so the ones in the distance in front of me, watch them one at a time start bending towards me. Right? They're going from being billboards to becoming real trees, or real 3D tree assets. Right? So those are the things you need to play with to get your game to look the way you want it to look. Let's do one last thing. Let's throw a skybox in. So to do that, I'll go to Edit, Render Settings, Skybox Material, and I'll click on the little button to the right. And I'm just going to find a skybox in here because I did load skyboxes, I think. We'll use this one called Overcast. And play, and let's see what that looks like. Okay, there's our Overcast skybox. Looks pretty good. You can make your own skyboxes too, by the way. And let's throw a little fog in there too, just for ambiance. So I'm going to say my fog starts at like 500 meters. I don't like too much fog. And it goes to 1,000. And we got to turn it on with the checkbox. And see, that's a lot of fog. And I'm going to take this down from 0.01 to 0.002. Just because, a little bit of fog goes a long way, in my opinion. We could probably bump that up just a little bit. It looked worse from the scene view. But you get the idea. That's how you can do terrain, terrain textures, trees, fog, direct light, skyboxes, and I guess that's about it. Wind.